Have I no father? I was once in an awful storm at sea. We were for many hours tossed about in the sight of dangerous rocks. The steam engines would work no longer. The wind raged violently, and around were heard the terrific roar of the breakers and the dash of the waves as they broke over the deck. At this dreary and trying time, while we lay, as might be said, at the mercy of the waves, I found great comfort and support from an apparently trifling circumstance. It was that the captain's child, a little girl of about 12 years old, was in the cabin with us. He had come 2 or 3 times in the midst of his cares and toils to see how his child went on, and it was well known how cheering is the sight of a captain in such a time of danger. As our situation grew worse, I saw the little girl rising on her elbow and bending her eyes anxiously to the door, as if anxious for her father's reappearance. He came at last. He was a large, bluff, sailor-like man, an immense coat, great sea boots, and the oilskin cap, with flaps hanging down on his neck, were streaming with water. He fell on his knees on the floor beside the low berth of his child, and stretched his arms over her, but did not speak. After a little while he asked her if she was alarmed. "Father," the child answered, "let me be with you. I shall not be afraid." "With me?" he cried. "You could not stand it for an instant." "Father, let me be with you," she repeated. "My child, you would be more frightened then," he replied as he kissed her, while the tears were on his rough cheeks. "No, Father, I will not be afraid if you will take me with you. Oh, Father, let me be with you." And she threw her arms around his neck and clung fast to him. The strong man was overcome. He lifted his child in his arms and carried her away with him. How much I felt her departure! As long as the captain's child was near, I felt her to be a sort of pledge for the return and care of the captain. I knew that in a moment of greatest danger, the father would run to his child. I was certain that were the vessel about to be abandoned midst of the wild waves, I should know every movement, for the captain would not desert his child. Thus, in the presence of that child, I had comforted myself, and when she went, I felt abandoned, and for the first time fearful, and I arose and managed to get on deck. The sea and the sky seemed one. It was a dreadful sight, and shuddering, I shrunk back and threw myself again on my couch. Then came the thought, the child is content. She is with her father. And have I no father? O God, I thank thee. In that moment, I could answer yes. An unseen Father, it is true, and faith is not as sight, and nature is not as grace, but still I knew I had a Father whose love surpasseth knowledge. The thought calmed my mind. Reader, does it calm yours? You have a Father in heaven. You are safe with him. You are secure in him. You are protected in him. "Oh," cries the trembling soul, "the storm is fearful. The sky is hid. We walk in darkness and have no light. Be still and know that I am God, saith the Lord. Be happy and know that God is thy Father. Fear thou not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am thy God. All things are under the dominion of Christ, and all things, yea, even terrible things, shall work together for good to them that love God. Tempest-tossed soul, as the child clung to her father's bosom, so cling thou to thy God. Take hold of your Heavenly Father by faith. Take hold of His hand. Don't let go. In the moment of thine extremity, He will appear to be with thee, and take thee to be with Him. How many of you, young though you may be, feel that you too have a Father, an all-loving Heavenly Father, that you can lean upon and trust in as confidently as did the captain's little daughter in the time of the terrible sea storm? Ah, there is a dreadful storm even now gathering, more terrible than the ocean tempest, when we all, old as well as young, shall want a Father to go to for protection. Get to know your Heavenly Father now. Get to know Him now. Learn to trust Him now. Learn to confide in Him now. Learn to go to Him when you're afraid now. So then when the storm does come, you will trust in Him. You will rest in Him. You will be secure in Him. How do we get to know our Heavenly Father? We get to know Him in His Word. We go out in what He has created. We spend time in the quiet peace of His creation. That's another way we get to know Him. We spend time in nature. He's the author of it. He's the maker of it. And as we spend time in it, we get to know the one who has created it. Get to know your Father in heaven through prayer. Pour out your heart to Him. Tell Him how you're feeling. Tell Him what you need. Tell Him what you're afraid of. He'll listen. He'll hear.